Hello, good afternoon. My name is Christy Coe. I'm the Associate Director for the MIT Initiative on the Digital Economy, and I will be your MC for the rest of the afternoon. Today so far, we've heard from speakers from industry, entrepreneurs, academics, educators, nonprofit organizations. A really big, important part of this puzzle is public policy. How are we helping to retrain the workers of today, the workforce? How are we transitioning with these new technologies? And so I have the immense honor of introducing our first keynote speaker of the day, Secretary Rosalin Acosta. She's the Secretary for Labor and Workforce Development in Massachusetts. Prior to joining the Baker-Polito administration, Secretary Acosta spent over 30 years in the banking industry. She's been named one of Boston's most influential women from the Women of the Harvard Club, El Planeta's top 100 most influential Hispanics in Massachusetts, and Get Connected's 100 most influential people of color in Boston. Please help me welcome Secretary Acosta.
Thank you for keeping it nice and short. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, what a pleasure it is for me to speak to you from a government podium instead of the private sector podium. I was actually really happy to be here a little bit earlier and listen to this wonderful panel. I could have listened to you guys for definitely the next couple of hours. And so many of the themes that were spoken about are themes that we spend a lot of time in our office discussing and preparing for. So I think it's a great segue to some of my comments today. And as I normally do, I probably will drift from some of my speaking points because so much here that was said, especially with that last question. That last question when it comes to the high schools and what we're doing in our educational facilities. And then I believe it was Allison that said that it's partnerships that are so important. And I just want to chat with you a little bit about how we do partner, not just in government, because that would be silly for us just to talk to ourselves, but how we partner with employers, educators, and community-based organizations. But let me just start by giving you just kind of a real brief and quick overview of the Massachusetts market. And the economy, as you all know right now, is very, very strong. We have a low 3.6% unemployment rate, and we've held that for about 29 consecutive months. In addition to low employment, we continue to add jobs at a very healthy clip. We've added over 200,000 jobs over these past 3 years. And the bulk of those jobs have been in key high-wage and high-skilled sectors of our economy, like healthcare, technology, and professional business and scientific services. More and more people are joining our labor markets in addition of over 100,000 in the last year alone. We have the highest average wages in the country, but I also know that that's not across every sector of our, every region of our Commonwealth. Massachusetts, as you all may know, is the most educated workforce in the US. We all tend to think we're all very smart, but we are smart. We're the only state in the country with over 50% of our employees with a bachelor's degree. But it's also a tight labor market, and there have been over 200,000 unique job postings in the last 90 days, but only about 130,000 people looking for work. So that's when the employers out there, if you're an employer and you're suffering from I can't find workers, that's one of the reasons. And I'm sure you guys have spoken today. I mean, this is such a great topic and one that so many forums have been held across the country on this future of work topic. But I know that, and I just heard a little bit of it, depending on what consultant you hear and you read about, talking about how jobs are going away and how the robots are going to come in here and take all our jobs. And if you read a recent report from McKinsey, you'll read that we have a potential of having 23% of our current work automated by 2030. And that's in the midpoint scenario, but if you're looking at a rapid scenario, it's more like 44% of our jobs will be automated in about 20 years. In food services, that number could be as high as 70% in the next 20 years. And these are major shifts for us, as well as there's a major demographic change in our workplace. Over the last 10 years, Latinos have gone from 5 to 10% of the workforce, and that number is projected to increase further. Excuse me. I believe women and minorities will continue to hold greater positions of leadership throughout our economy, and we all know, and we all talk about this a lot, this is not a social nicety, a social imperative. This is an economic necessity, and we have to make sure that we have more diverse folks in our workforce. And when I speak to employers, I talk a lot about a couple of things. One is making sure that they're being very intentional in their hiring process and making sure that they're casting a very wide net as they're looking at the skills that they need for their workforce, but then also looking closely at job descriptions. And many of our job descriptions were written sometimes a little too long ago, and they automatically say BA required. And I think you got to really look at that because there are a lot of jobs that you have that can be done without a BA. And would you be tolerant enough to hire someone without a BA that maybe is working towards a BA or has another type of apprenticeship or credential that can help you in that particular job? When we look at where things stand now and the future of work, we know broadly what we need to be engaged in from a workforce development perspective. And we need to really employ aggressive reemployment strategies to connect those who don't have a job or need a better one to employment in high-demand sectors, which are likely to be very resilient to automation and are often STEM-related. And I say reemployment because I think it's a more appropriate term than unemployment. And I think that positive lexicon is one of the things that we definitely need to continue focusing on as we focus on our current economic environment. As many of you know, though, that unemployment statistics don't reflect a lot of the realities of our time, especially when it comes to underemployment and retooling our aging workforce to meet the job markets of the 21st century so that minorities and women can access high-quality career pathways. Reemployment is going to present us with some challenges, but also some opportunities. Opportunities I believe Massachusetts is setting itself up to gain from. Right now in Massachusetts, there are 354,000 people working in retail with a medium wage of $27,000. Another 700,000 or so work in leisure and hospitality and food and accommodation with similar wages. We know these jobs are going to be subjected to a lot of automation and a lot of change in the very near future. Right in downtown Crossing in Massachusetts, in Boston, I don't know if you guys have been to Spice. It's a restaurant that is completely automated. You go in, you put your order on an iPad, and then robots build your salad, and then you're gone, you're done. So obviously, workers that had been there or workers that are not getting those jobs, we need to make sure that we are, I know one of our panelists didn't like the word reskilling, let's use the word upskilling, and let's use a different phrase, but it doesn't matter. The point is that we're gonna have to make sure that we look at the skills that folks have and then match them to the opportunities that are in our workforce. And we know that a lot of these workers in these sectors would like to move to higher wage jobs. When we talk about employment in our office, we're talking about livable wage. We want people to have sustainable, livable wages. So we do focus a lot on middle wage jobs, not just entry-level jobs. And sometimes you need to put folks in entry-level jobs while you're training them and skilling them for something else. But our goal is for people to have one job, go home, enjoy your family, wake up the next day, and then go to the job that fulfills you so that you don't have to have 2 and 3 jobs. The opportunity for us now is that we know where the jobs are expected to go. Areas like healthcare, technology, and advanced manufacturing, knowledge-based economy jobs, but also skills-based economy jobs that will not all require a college degree, as I said before. One of the comments that was made about collaboration, that is so critically important to what we do. When Governor Baker took office first time, 3 years ago, one of the first things that he did by executive order was sign an executive order to form the Workforce Skills Cabinet. And the Workforce Skills Cabinet simply is combining, for working purposes, my secretariat, Secretary of Education, and Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. And why did we do that? Because I can't do my job. There is no way I can get people to work without education. And there's no way that we can talk about work and education without talking about housing and economic development and bringing businesses into Massachusetts. So we meet, the three secretaries in our teams, we meet every month, and we make sure that we're doing government smartly. We leverage our goals and we leverage our grants. All of us get federal money, and we get money that is for different kinds of training and training purposes. So it would be silly for us to navigate those federal grants in silos. It's a heck of a lot more powerful when we're together sitting around a room and really thinking about the strategies that we need for Massachusetts and how to grow this economy and make sure that our economy continues to be healthy, and really analyzing the needs of our Commonwealth, and then group those grants, as well as talk about our goals. And last year, frankly, when we submitted the budget, it was the first time that we had submitted a workforce skills cabinet budget. And so instead of asking for $5 million, we asked for $15 million, just so that together as the three secretariats, so we can put some programs in place. In addition to the work that we do in our office, one of the things that we also launched, again under the header of partnership, is we know that from a state perspective, I can't go into Berkshire's and tell the Berkshires they have to do the same thing that Boston's doing, or I can't tell Boston that they have to do the same thing that Cape is doing. Doesn't make any sense. Every region of our Commonwealth is a little bit different, has a little bit of different needs. So for the purpose of planning, we have 16 workforce investment boards throughout Massachusetts. We combine them into 7 for working purposes. And the goal in that regional planning process was to organize teams across sectors, so organize teams of employers, organize educators, workforce development folks, community-based organizations in each of those 7 regions. And then we came in as a state with labor market information, and we gave them information on what are the businesses in that region that had openings? How many kids are graduating from high school, community college, and college? What kind of degrees were they getting? Because it's a little harder to measure skills these days. So the purpose of this regional planning process was to put a blueprint together with the information that we were giving the regions, and then come back to the 3 secretaries and tell us how they're going to bridge the gaps in their communities, bridge the gaps in their regions. And I'll tell you, I thought we were going to find a whole lot of differences. And every single one of the regions, from the Berkshires down to the Cape, they all had their own flavor. But what resonated and what really came out as 3 priority industries that they all really needed to work on, because the openings were large, were in healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. And that shouldn't be a surprise, I think, to anyone in this room. I mean, healthcare is our largest industry in Massachusetts, and IT is certainly growing very, very quickly, and we have over 8,500 jobs just in the IT space today that we have not been able to fill. And Boston's a very good place to be for that. One of the things that we know that we have to do once we had that call from our regions of those 3 priority industries, for the most part, is how are we going to answer that? How are we going to help from a state perspective make those connections more robust? And so what we landed on was something that's been going on in Europe for a very long time, and certainly some parts of our country, is on apprenticeships. And we know that we need to expand our apprenticeship programs. So right now we have over 9,500 folks in apprenticeship programs, but mostly in the trades. And the trades do a great job. They really have done a great job over the years in their apprenticeship programs. But we need to diversify those apprenticeships into the industries that are going to be important to our economy. And those were the 3 priority industries that we're going to be focused on for now. But there are others. So some regions said, yes, those 3 that I mentioned are priority industries, but construction is still important to us. Education is still important to us. We need to backfill a lot of positions. So they're going to have their blueprints to address those things. But off the gate from a state level, we're going to be launching apprenticeship programs. And next week, we actually announce and launch an IT apprenticeship program. And you'll be hearing a lot more about that, and that will be a statewide initiative. And we're going to be looking for employers to join us in this effort so that we can give you the skilled workers that you're looking for. So pretty excited about that initiative. One of the other programs that we have in the Workforce Skills Cabinet is a Workforce Skills Capital Grant Program. And that money predominantly goes to Voc schools and high schools, Voc schools, and community colleges. And the purpose there is to make sure that we're providing the machinery and the infrastructure to schools to teach our kids relevant things. I think you guys must remember, some of you are about as old as I am in this room. When I was growing up, Voc schools were not a place that the smart kids went to, right? Voc schools were the place that kids that, maybe were not on an academic track, didn't like school, that's where they went. That is a very different story today. Voc schools are in high demand, graduating kids that are going off to schools like this one, and are doing very well in the Commonwealth. And the reason is because they are combining that soft skills education, which is so important, and you heard about that a little bit ago in the previous panel, as well as hard skills, real skills that are going to apply to the workforce. We used to teach kids on really old machines and things that just were not relevant when they got out into the real world, as we say. We're not doing that anymore. So we've put over $50 million into our Voc and community colleges just for this program in the last 3 years. And we have 75 million more that we're going to be putting out over the next 3 years. So a significant investment by Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito to make sure that our educational systems are relevant. And look, we all know that we have to start these conversations a lot earlier. We have to start conversations with kids in middle school, giving them a lot more career awareness than we have. And the soft skills training has to start really, really early. And the exposure to not just what you might want to be when you grow up, but actually giving the kids the experience of going to a workplace and having that experiential learning. And through our Innovation Pathways programs, there are more and more high schools in the Commonwealth that are taking advantage of a program called Connecting Activities, where the kids are interning as high school students in businesses. And the kids that do that come out so ahead. They have skills that employers, I don't have to tell you, that we really appreciate because they actually know how to walk into the workplace. And that's something that is hard to teach just from a classroom. One of the ways that we promote that also is through our new Mass Hire launch and our Mass Hire brand, which is our career centers. Before I joined government, I was in the private sector, as you heard, and I had absolutely no idea that Massachusetts had 29 career centers throughout the state. No idea. And I've been a hiring manager for over 20 years, and I never thought to use a public workforce resource. And you know why? Because I didn't know they existed. And one of the reasons that I didn't know they existed is because we have 29 career centers and we have 16 workforce investment boards that oversee these career centers. And we have 45 different names. So go figure. It's kind of hard to remember 45 different names, and they all do the same thing. So one of the things that we embarked on shortly after I arrived was, can we let people know what we do? This is kind of an important resource, especially in this economy when employers are really looking for help and job seekers are also looking for help. So we went through a very long year-plus process of surveys and mission building and kind of what's our purpose, what's our value, what are we here for? And we came up with the name Mass Hire. So hopefully you'll see that around the Commonwealth in your travels. I'm wearing a pin right now, advertising. And you'll see that in billboards, and you'll hopefully take advantage of a Mass Hire center when you are looking for workers. Or if you're a job seeker, you don't have to be unemployed to come to Mass Hire. You can be looking for another career. You can be looking to get better skills with workshops, resume building, LinkedIn workshops, et cetera. We have all of those things. And guess what? It's free. It's you're paying for it with your tax dollars. So please take advantage. Please take advantage of that. And again, the awareness piece was very, very low. That's why we did it. When we surveyed employers, about 6% of employers in Massachusetts knew we existed. So that's usually not a good marketing strategy. So hopefully we'll change that. You know, and amidst all of this talk of scaling, upscaling, rescaling, whatever we want to call it, it's critically important, and I heard one of our panelists say that, is that we adapt a culture of lifelong learning. Because the days where, you know, we went to high school, you went to college, you get your master's, right, you check, and then you think you're done forever, those days are completely gone. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Because technology is moving quickly and because you don't know what you're going to be required, even if you've been at your job for 10 years, 15 years, your life could change. Your job description could change because something new comes into, is invented and new technology that you'll have to learn. I'll tell you a quick story. I've been in banking for a long time, and when I was at one of our big regional banks here in Massachusetts, I have been in the wealth management business for a while and helping people invest money, et cetera, for at least 10, 12 years. Did not need any securities licenses because when the bank structure, you're exempt from FINRA and SEC security licenses. Well, guess what? The truth changed, and my bank decided that they were going to become a brokerage house. And guess what? Now I had to go, at the ripe old age of 50, and get my security licenses. I had to get my 7, my 24, my 66. If any one of you have ever gone through that grueling process, it is really, really painful. I see a smile over here of pain, but it is a real painful process. And the only thing that got me through those really, really grueling 9 months, worse than the 9 months of pregnancy I've had with 5 different kids, the only thing that got me through was one thing. I just kept saying to myself, what got me here ain't gonna get me there. And the truth changed, my job changed. And that's what we have to, and that was a great lesson for me. It was, now I've lost those licenses because I'm no longer practicing, which was even more painful. But the culture and the psychology and that we need to build in our schools and for our adult learners this is a continuous process. And the governor last April signed an executive order also to start a Digital Innovation and Lifelong Learning Commission. And I'm on that commission, and we're about to issue our recommendations to the governor in a couple of weeks, because we know that has to be an active dialogue here in Massachusetts. And we can't do any of this. I can't be successful, none of us can be successful in this journey without the partnerships in this room. And I think when I was when I was in the private sector, I really never looked at government as a resource. I kind of looked at them as an obstacle. And too bureaucratic, too much paperwork, way too slow. And when I joined this administration a year and a half ago, I realized that I had some real misperceptions of what being in government is. You can do a lot and you can do it quickly, but it all depends on leadership. And it all depends also on the outreach that you have to the communities. So I'm here to tell you that I want to work with you. And there are many of you in the room that I do work with already. But we need to continue those partnerships going. And my office is open to you with your concerns and your questions, and I welcome your voices, because as we build policy and we build programs, we have to make sure that they're relevant and they're sustainable, right? So I don't see anybody teaching calligraphy anymore because it's not relevant. We have to make sure that what we teach in our career centers and what we're training for are things that are relevant. And you help keep me relevant and keep the administration relevant. So thank you very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. You have an incredible day. I hope you've enjoyed the morning so far and the rest of the afternoon. Thanks very much.